Welcome to our very first ever podcast series, Behind the Scenes. I'm Carolyn, Vernon, and I'm the manager at Barfoot and Thompson, Remuera. In this series, we're going to take you inside our world of real estate, the sales hustle, the customer experience, and also the key players who make every transaction a positive one. Today, we're actually going to meet some team members from Barfoot and Thompson, Remuera, and we're going to look at how they actually got into the real estate business, what drives them, and actually what makes them stay in business. I hope you enjoy. To help us uncover and understand how people get into real estate, I have with me here Suria, who's the marketing manager / administration manager extraordinaire, and she's going to talk to us about what her role entails and how she got into real estate. And besides Suria, we have Rebecca Popovic, who has had a very interesting career, I say before real estate, and I would actually call it quite glamorous. So we're going to hear about how that's helped you transition into your role, which is as the rental manager at our rental branch. And we have beside me Rawdon Christie, who is a residential salesperson. Many of you know Rawdon already, but for those of you who don't, he's going to talk about how he came into real estate. I remember our first meeting actually, Rawdon.
Yes, some time ago. Yeah. Is this us? So we're doing it. We're talking.
We're talking.
Oh, no, because it's interesting that I had in my sort of post-TV, I'd had a long career in quite a high-profile environment. And when it came to an end, I was looking at the options, what's next. And one of the options was a good friend of mine who Peter Thompson, who runs the company. He and I had talked about real estate, and he had made the connection with you, and we'd sat down and had a chat. And at that stage, my media commitments were building up in other areas, so I sort of parked the idea and ran my own media business for a few years. And it wasn't until the COVID lockdown came around that suddenly I saw all my media. It was a very sort of, again, quite a public-facing company I was running, all closed pretty much in a day. And I made a very quick, and it wasn't a difficult decision to make, a very quick decision. And I was in Fiji at a conference, and I remember ringing you saying, hi, Carolyn, we've just heard that New Zealand's being locked down and we've got to come back to the country. Have you still got a desk for me? And you were lovely, and you said, oh, I might be able to. No, you said, of course, we'd love to talk to you about that. And so I'd literally that day then signed up for a real estate course and made the decision.
And that would have been 18 months probably from our first meeting to then.
It was a couple of years, and we hadn't had any connection since then, but so it was really interesting for me, feeling that A, I could just ring Carolyn out of the blue, and B, that you'd given me probably that initial meeting, you'd just left it exactly how, and it was really interesting watching how you build a relationship with someone, just saying, I understand, Rawdon, that this may not be the right time. You didn't say this, but you obviously felt it may not be the right time. But when it is, we'll have a conversation. And it just made it very, very easy for me to then transition into this.
Well, you're actually quite structured in how you do things. You plan your future. How did you actually, or what attracted you to actually go into real estate?
God, I really do obviously hide my my logical, well-planned non-existence. No, why real estate? It was more about it served a purpose on lifestyle, in that I was able to choose my own. I didn't ever want to work for someone again. I wanted to be responsible for my own destiny. I wanted to know that what I put in, I was going to get out. That was one thing. Another thing is just about the way you can structure your own hours. That's another reason why I waited a wee bit, because the kids were still maybe slightly young for me to say goodbye to weekends and to potentially long evenings and that slightly unknown sort of work structure which we work in. And the other part of it is that I just knew I could work off my strengths in that very simple but essential need to be able to build relationships very quickly with an awful lot of different types of people, which is effectively what I was doing every day as a journalist.
I agree. And you're right. Actually, one of the main drivers for people getting into real estate is that you control your own destiny. It's your business. It's up to you if you're going to be a success. I do also remember one of your first sales has been one of the most, or your first listings, been quite a challenging listing, and you persevered with that. So while you like to run your own business, you also know and understand the need to be resilient in your business.
And again, I think that comes from that broadcasting environment, is that you've got to be tenacious, you've got to want it, otherwise you're going to get nowhere. Yeah. And actually that applies very, very well across to real estate. If you can't people say just follow the process. You can to a point, but with the difficult negotiations, the difficult parts of the business, you can't just follow the process. You need to find something a little bit more than that.
I totally agree. So what keeps you here?
Well, it's the company. It's the... Gosh, that's a good question, isn't it? What keeps me here? A lot of what I've said keeps me here in the fact I do feel as though I control my own environment and my own life to an extent. I still feel as though I'm trying to work out where I'm going to go in it. That's the other thing, is I see around me a lot of very established agents, real estate salespeople who are they know their patch, they know their client base, they know the sort of properties they want to deal with. I still feel as though I've spent 4 years learning, and now I'm ready to actually figure out, and I'm sort of figuring it out, actually where I want to go in it now. So I sort of, something keeping me here at the moment is the fact I feel as though I'm only really just coming to the end of my, I suppose, sort of self-imposed apprenticeship. I now feel as though I can start making choices and actually maneuver myself where I want to go.
It's interesting. I also remember having those discussions with you about the 4-year mark in real estate. It's the really sweet point. And I can remember the look on your face thinking, really? 4 years? Do I have to wait 4 years? And in a blink of an eye, it's here.
Actually, probably what I was thinking was, really, I'm going to make no money for 4 years? But no, I was lucky in the fact that I did get business going very quickly.
Yeah.
And then we had that golden period in the market when I was still building on that. And I learned enough to be able to ride what's been a pretty tough 18 months. So now actually one of the things keeping me going is I'm actually quite excited to know what I could do. Now I know what I'm doing when the market stabilises into a nice normal market again. So that's actually quite an exciting prospect. 2025, I'm really looking forward to, actually.
Yeah, fantastic. Rebecca.
Yes.
Now you've come from a really quite interesting background, and as I said, I thought quite glamorous, but it's probably a lot of hard work.
It's glamorous on the outside,
yeah,
Carolyn,
from the outside.
but yes, yeah.
Talk to us about where have you been and how you got into real estate.
So the glamorous lifestyle probably was I worked on super yachts for over 10 years, and that was best years of my life in many ways, travelling the world and working alongside people from all different countries, and dealing with really high profile people, prime ministers, royalty, celebrities, and their families. So it was a privilege, an absolute privilege. So a very service orientated background that I've been in, and that plays out in my role every single day. I'm very grateful for that experience.
So how did you transition into the rental market?
So obviously we had a family business which was in building, renovation, all that sort of, as a family, and so this is what came after that. Changes in life, and moved into real estate. So.
And do you see many common areas, common themes?
Absolutely. I
talk to us about that.
It's funny, Rawdon was just talking about like sort of the apprenticeship. I think everything is always leading to something, and I feel that this sort of role, it's such an important one when you're dealing with people, and having that respect and understanding of communication and building trust and relationships. That's really the foundation of being a property manager, 100%. And I feel like that is one of my strengths, and that's just come from years of understanding how to build relationships and service.
Just while we're with you, Rebecca, and before we go over to Suria, can you tell us what a typical day looks like for you?
Day in the life. Well, a typical day can change in the drop of a in 2 seconds it can all change. But basically, it's all about time management and structure. So emails, phone calls, your daily tasks, inspections, viewings are all the sort of standard things that we do every day. And being prepared for the unexpected, working around anything that can happen.
It's never a dull day.
It's never a dull day.
Sales or rentals.
It's never a typical day, and I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's just I like that so much. You never know what's going to happen, and there's always something new to learn. And it's definitely not an average day.
Yeah. Thank you, Rebecca. Suria, our marketing manager, talk to us how you got into real estate. And then the changes that you've made along the way while you've been with us.
I actually know no one from the real estate. I had nothing related to real estate. So I had a background in psychology and I worked in HR advisor role for 6 years. So I was in the people management industry before I came to real estate. So how I got into Barfoot was initially I applied for a role in talent and development department in head office.
Which is also called used to be called the training department.
Training department, yep. So it was a training coordinator role, but I didn't land that position. Instead, then I got introduced to Remuera branch, and knowing that Carolyn, which is the branch manager, is hiring for PA, so I thought I'll give it a go, and then I went for an interview, and then I still remember that was like after work at 6 p.m. I asked, could I come in after work, because that's when I had a better clear mind what I was going to say for my interview. And I think we had quite a long chat.
We did.
And then when I walked away from the interview, straight away I just knew that I think I'm very clicked with this manager, not knowing what I'm going to do, but I feel like I can work for her. So I ended up in the role as a PA, and I've been here for 3.5 years now. And Carolyn's been really good that I got given opportunity growing from a PA to office manager, and I'm now in a marketing position.
Wow, much loved you are, Suria, I just have to say, from the whole team. Talk to us about what your day looks like, a typical day for you.
So, my day kind of different every day, so it depends on how many agents actually turn up in the office. So I kind of prioritize Carolyn's work and my own marketing work before any agent comes in, because when they come in, I know I just have to drop everything and help them. So I can say that most of the day, if nothing ad hoc or no support to the agent, my day would be actually looking into social media, look at creative content, and then also be ready and prepared to help out the admin team in the office. Yeah.
And you're very, very creative, I have to say. Very creative.
I learned in the job.
And very helpful as well for us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's key. And I love the fact that when we come in, because you work quite close to where we come into the office, but you work with your back to us. And which is very clever, but also so it means that when we want something out of you, which is often during every day, as we approach you, hi Suria,
I pick and choose.
It depends how slowly you turn around to look at us as to how I know how busy you are. And if you're really busy, you'll turn around really slowly. So by the time you're making eye contact, I'm already I'm sorry for interrupting, and I'll get it done quickly. Anyway, huge asset for us.
I've learned my emotion from my back. Emotion from my back.
Rawdon, talk to me about what a typical day in sales looks like.
Well, see, I heard Rebecca talking about structure, calls and emails.
Sounded good, didn't it?
This is actually one of the parts of the puzzle I've not solved yet, because I was told about you've got to be well disciplined, you've got to be process driven. Yet I genuinely find, because every day is so different, and it's almost like, we've had a busy period, so it's been trying to juggle listings and appraisals and sales presentations, and we're doing a lot of work prepping people's properties to get them onto the market. And then on top of that, your auctions and your pre-settlement inspections, and it just seems to be that all the things just roll on and on and on. And the one thing which I don't ever do is sit down and say, right, I'm going to do my 2 hours of well-structured business. Well, and even then, and quite a lot of what we're doing is also then thinking about our own pipeline. And it might be about my own personal marketing and social media or whatever. But that very formal business generation part of the puzzle is really hard to fit in. Now, most successful real estate people will say, actually, then prioritize that, because that has to be, if that doesn't happen, you ain't got nothing else coming in. And maybe it's just because it has been such a consistent pipeline of stuff coming to us. But what's interesting then is that when we do actually focus on it, when I sit down and actually focus on it, business does come from it. So I'm not very structured. I genuinely would say that no one of my sort of 6 or 7 days is typical. The weekends are they're probably the only typical days, because it is very much about family time, open homes, maybe doing some follow-up calls at the end of the open homes, or those little jobs I have to do, and then family time. So that's a nice structured day, because, we're trying to limit it to maybe just doing 4 or 5 hours work on those days. But the rest of the week is just, it's, admittedly, a lot of it is about being able to meet clients' and customers' needs. If people can't talk to us until a Friday or a Friday afternoon, then that has to be the time we see them. But there's nowhere in the week when we're sitting there going, oh, what should we do now? And that's good, because if that happened, then I'd be worried.
I don't think you're the type of person to sit down and start your knitting.
No. Knitting would be a disaster.
You mentioned about family, and family can often be horrified at some of the stuff they see their parents doing. For example, being on a billboard on Clonbourne Road, Rebecca.
All my children's friends saw that. Yes, I had lots of comments.
Even I had, there's Mama Vern's on the board. I'm like, oh, goodness me. and you are actually do quite a lot on social media. One of the memorable ones for me was you on the back of a jet ski for the America's Cup with the Barfoot and Thompson flag.
Oh, that's epic.
Your family must actually just shake their head. Are they used to you
they
doing
are.
things like that because you've been in media?
Yeah. So, the kids grew up with Dad doing strange things on the telly, whatever it might have been, because we used to do a lot of silly stuff as well as hopefully a lot of good journalism. So for them, they just blink an eye. They don't even bat an eye at it. But they're all a bit older now, anyway. They're all sort of little adults.
Love it. So Rebecca, I had feedback from someone the other day how they were so excited about meeting you because you love your job so much. Why do you love your job so much?
Oh my God, how long have we got? I love the connection. It's all about the people. And this job allows me to be myself, and I don't know, it brings people together. You meet people, you're trying to match people with the right property, find them what they need for their families, whatever their situation is. I feel I love that. And slowly as time has gone on at Remuera, and when I first started here, it just took a while to get to know my portfolio, but then the rewarding part is building the relationships. And with the owners, I think that's pretty special because you're dealing with, their biggest asset and they're trusting you, and everything is about trust. So building the trust and then getting to know the tenants, because the tenants are taking care of the property. So it's that sort of fine line, and I really enjoy that. I look forward to going to inspections. I see my tenants have their babies. Like, I know it sounds, probably sounds a bit corny, but that's all part of it. That's a day in the life, and it's wonderful. So, yeah.
That's just so lovely to hear, I have to say,
it
Rebecca.
is. I really, really like what I do.
Because you are an important part of people's lives.
We are.
Actually a tenant's life, and also off the landlord, one of their biggest financial investments. So
we're that middle person, and I think you have to be respectful to both sides, and I do my best to do that every day, and that's the rewarding part of the job.
So there's the rewarding part of the job, and then there's the interesting part of the job. Now I'm sure there's a story you could tell us without naming names. What's been the most oh my goodness moment that you would have experienced?
There's been a lot of those. I think that the most challenging part is dealing with people's emotions and reaction to things that happen that are unexpected. And that is the hardest part, because anything can happen, whether it's a ceiling that caves in, a leak, a flood, a roof issue, or anything like that. It's pretty stressful, and so, you know, again, communication. Quite often I like to go out to the property, see things for myself. I think you can sit on the phone all you like, be on beside your computer, but unless you're actually there in the flesh, you can't get the feeling of you know, what's happening. Also, I have to report to owners. A lot of them live overseas, and I need to be able to relay things. So it can be a bit challenging managing some of those situations. There's a lot of disputes that happen at properties with neighbours. There's a lot of issues that you have to go there in person, and that's what I do. I just show up, and then I try and find a solution. For example, a tree's leaning on a fence, the neighbour on one side gets upset, so they throw the branches onto the tenant's beautiful tomatoes that they've just grown and their beautiful chilies, and they destroy the garden. They don't care, they're just annoyed, had enough of the tree, and then it's just trying to manage all of that. So getting the trees cut down, fixing the fence, dealing with the tenant that's upset, and then going back to the owner to report what's happening. Like, you know, these are sort of, I'm raving, sorry, but yeah.
No, it is a common day in the life of someone in property management.
And everybody's got everyone has their perspective on everything in their day, and people have stress in their day, they have all sorts of things going on that we don't know about, and that's, it's being respectful really at all times and listening. Yeah. Everyone deserves to be heard. So,
That relationship building is such a key part of it across what all four of us do, because initially you don't really, while the trust is being built, you're sort of feeling your way into it. We don't want to come on too strong, because that's a bit, people may not, defences will go up. At the same time, there's a perception that you real estate people are just in it for yourselves, when actually, thankfully, there are a lot of us who aren't. We're just trying to do, provide a good service. But then as the trust builds, and then it gets to that stage of emotion whereby, in your situation, it's helping tenants who may have been having the worst day ever deal with difficult neighbours. And I'm thinking about, when you actually get the first home buyer and they buy a place, and in the auction room or when you present that, or when you ring them, tell them that their offer's been accepted, and there's tears. You realise how much stress these people are under, or the people selling who desperately needed to sell because that's the only way they could get into that particular apartment and pay off the debt. And the solution is, and you get it over the line, and it's just that is actually the big reward of this whole thing.
Yes.
That is where you're going, my God, that was a really good day.
I think the values that so Rawdon, what you've just talked about is so true. It's the essence of how we all function in our branch, and the values that we espouse. It's a privilege to be part of someone's property journey. And that's where they're selling their home, which is often their biggest investment, or actually purchasing their first home. So what's great is that we all actually respect and understand that.
So often, particularly in the last 18 months, we've seen a lot of people struggle to, get the property sold, and you're coming into situations whereby the agent who they've chosen has not worked particularly well for them. They probably may not have cared that much. They may have been too busy, whatever the situation, and they've lost faith with the whole system. And then you've got to try and pick up the pieces and say, actually, we can find a solution for you. This idea of what you were saying then about how we can actually now service your property needs. This isn't about selling a house. This is about what you need out of this whole situation. And even now we're negotiating with one party who really wants this house, but the vendors cannot meet them. And so now we're trying to find the vendors an alternative so that they can lower their expectations, to make it work. Because we know both, they're not buying and selling houses to make money or anything. They're buying and selling houses because they need to change their lives and where they're at.
It's their home.
So can we find a solution in there somewhere?
So leading on from that, what advice would you give to an owner of what to look for when choosing a real estate agent?
Probably the most important thing is to go with someone who's got an established public profile from a previous job in television. But on a serious note, this is probably the thing I found most challenging is I look at the ways salespeople and agents win business. And it drives me up the wall. And I mean, an hour ago I was talking to a client who's having a difficult situation and was promised by that particular agent that they had buyers, and not one buyer has ever come nearer the place. And I'm just going, well, I'm sorry you fell for the oldest line. But there's a reason why, because salespeople can be very, very convincing. But it really gets my goat when I can see salespeople and agents winning listings by promising things they can't deliver. And then the relationship's already off on a bad foot. But of course, the client is locked in. So they may get ground down by that agent, and eventually they'll sell it, and the agent gets their coin, and the vendor walks away not feeling great about the whole experience, and that does none of us any good. So that's probably the thing which gets me the most, is when people are selecting an agent, that they don't take time to really do their research. We all go on, we use Google reviews for everything nowadays. I'm not saying Google reviews, because what you find is that a lot of people will buy profile even in that world, but just ringing other clients from before, calling people and finding out we can all present testimonials or reviews to suit our own brand, but actually go out there and try and do some research, because at the end of the day, you're charging with someone with, as you said, Carolyn, the sale or the purchase of their biggest asset.
Really, really important points. And just a simple thing of actually picking up the phone to someone who has been a vendor before with a salesperson makes all the difference in the world. What other skill sets would you say? There's obviously someone who's going to listen to you. To me, that one of the biggest important things is it's a working relationship you're having here, and you've got to have a relationship that you're going to feel safe and comfortable with. How would a vendor tease that information out of someone, do you think?
I think the vendor's got to be very careful and find out exactly how communication is going to be done over the relationship, because it's one thing to build a level of trust, but sometimes when you meet somebody who's going through this process and they haven't heard from their property has been, it's not gone to plan, and the 3 weeks has become 6 weeks, has become 9 weeks, and now their agent, they see, may hear off once a week if they're lucky. And you realise that the communication's completely fallen apart. Well, that agent's probably given up on that particular listing, and that's going to go nowhere. So I think it's really important to know how often you're going to get communication, how you're going to be communicated with, and in your, in the property management world, and that's even more important than ever.
Absolutely.
And you've secured a few listings recently, Rebecca, because of your past experience with those people on communication, keeping in contact the whole time. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I think, my greatest, it's wonderful when you get a referral from an owner that tells a friend, and that's just happened to me this week, which was amazing.
Suria, talking about dealing with some challenging people, you actually deal with a lot of personalities. Namely myself being a personality that has a lot of thoughts going in her head and sometimes just comes out. What I really like about you is that you actually have managed to know me, or you know me so well that you understand where my thought process is going to go to, just like this question.
That's very good.
So we'll go back to the first question. Was you deal with a lot of different people in our branch. We have a lot of different personalities, with a lot of different skill sets, and some people will want you to do something straight away, and some will say, well, that's okay, I can wait a little while. How do you juggle those different personalities that they also have different styles in their marketing? Because we don't want to be cookie cutter. None of us have a cookie cutter, and we don't want to dampen anyone's personality. So how do you deal with that from a marketing perspective?
I think with different personalities, and I don't think anyone is trying to be difficult. I don't think that's their goal. You need to just understand why it's difficult to them. There must be some pain point that they're trying to solve. They want someone to solve. and it's just a lot of challenges that they have. So I think I will always start with a approach where trying to understand. I think everyone wants to be listened, so you need to give them the chance to actually speak and to actually listen to them. Whether or not you agree or not, I don't usually tell them. I'll just try to actually listen to them and actually repeat what they say, and then trying to understand, make them understand that I actually understand your pain point and this is what I'm trying to help. But whether I can help or not, I think if I can manage the first approach well, whether or not you solve that problem, you already solve a big part of the challenges that you're gonna be facing with them. So so I like the people business, I like people management, and I like problem as well. I used to think that I need to work in HR or the employment management side to be able to deal with a lot of this stuff, to upskill in this stuff as well. But in the last 3 years, I think my career in the people side has expanded so much more than I was in a HR advisor role for 6 years. So I think, like, your question was, how do I deal with them? So I think first of all, it's actually making them realize that I actually understand your pain and I know your challenges and I'm here to try to help you. I think I feel like that's the best way to go with.
And I think you do that, well, I know you do that really well. And I believe that you would be the most respected and loved member of Barfoot and Thompson Remuera. Would you agree?
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, you're a close second, Carolyn.
I'll take that.
No, when you talked about structure in the day, one of the things which I do try and do is to come into the office every day, because that does offer a bit of structure, and there's no way, and we're going off on a complete tangent here, and often it will be for 5 minutes just to say hello because I'm passing, and other times it'll be to spend the whole afternoon hopefully in a quiet space. But there's you know, it can be quite a lonely place as sales agents. You know, you're out on your own a lot of the time. You're sitting at home a lot of the time, and so being able to come in and actually enjoy a bit of banter with the team is really important, particularly when you know that actually everyone in that office when you come in is, well, either you're hiding it well or you're all genuinely in a pretty receptive mood to, you know, sometimes you're very busy, that's fine, but you know, there's a real open door policy in that office. Although you've got to learn from Suria about the slow head turn.
I know, I do, don't I?
To show
You did
she's
my
busy.
back.
But yeah, so that's actually a really important part of the week, to make sure that you touch base with the office, you know, hopefully 4 or 5 times during the week.
And I don't think people realise how much joy we get when we actually people come into the office, and that adds value to our day. So, and Rebecca, you would have the same. You have a really tight knit little
I was
group.
just thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I love coming to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah, I love it. We have a great team, and you know, we've built that, and I'm really proud of that. Really proud of it, and we all help each other. So, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, Suria helps us too, and I mean, everyone is one big team, right? Team Remuera. But I think for us, we've got a lot of experience, and I really value that. So I know that I can ask anybody anything, and everyone will stop, and everyone will give their opinion, and yeah, we just work really well together. So I'm excited for that, and yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because in sales, I was warned that there'll be some offices and some branches and some companies or whatever where people do not want to, you know, we're all running our own little businesses, and you know, there's going to be no sharing. And I've heard stories about people who just will not talk, will hide their work, they don't want anyone to know about it. Thankfully though, I think that the culture which we have in our office is of collaboration and of sharing. And you know, for newer agents like me, when I came into it 4 years ago, I don't know if I'd actually, I don't know if I could have stayed in it if I didn't feel as though people were going to help me along the way, and were just going to hide and at their desk and often know. And there, you know, there are some who do their own thing the whole time, but I think people in our office are pretty good at sharing experience. And when we sit down and we'll share stories about how things have gone, and I mean, you know, it's really important collaboration. Although we're all doing our own thing over here, and we're all better off for it.
I agree. Rawdon, going back to what you mentioned about what a vendor probably needs a skill set in a salesperson. I see so much, especially in the last 18 months, that the successful salespeople are the ones that have a solution-focused mindset and always looking at another way of doing things and staying true and staying close with their owners and with the buyers as well. Can you give us an example of a situation that was a bit of a curly one?
To be honest, the ones I find toughest is when we're dealing potentially with a deceased estate, and you're not really, there's no emotional connection with the vendor because you're probably dealing with maybe a trust or a lawyer or a set of siblings who are inheriting, some of whom may not even be in the country. They may not have seen the house for goodness knows how long. They're really only focused on the money, and that's the toughest of the lot because you're dealing with. And you're sitting there trying to explain to them that this is where the market's at, and we've got this buyer who absolutely passionately wants this property more so than anyone else, and this is a young family who would love it. They just physically cannot get to this, to a certain level. But we think as though we've given it such a good hit on the market, we think this is the most we're going to get, and you still will get maybe one or two stubborn people who say, "Well, no, I'm not interested. I'm not going to sign it." That's the toughest. And there's no emotional attachment. Actually, it just comes down potentially just to one thing, and that's greed. And greed is a really pretty nasty emotion, which does come up quite a lot in real estate. And it's the one which turns my stomach a wee bit, as opposed to the opposite, which is what you were just mentioning, is that where you find a solution for. And it often, we've talked about the buyers buying for the first time and being able to afford their dream home, and the emotion, because they've probably lost 5 auctions before, and they've spent a fortune on building inspections, and they really they've had enough of searching, and they're worried that the pre-approval is going to run out, and that they're going to be in a really difficult situation, and they've handed in their notice, and they've got young children. That's a great. Those are the biggest celebrations we'll get. The other one is when you get a couple who are, or a vendor who's in a distressed situation, because sometimes it's financially, but more often it's health. They need to move because they physically cannot survive maybe or thrive in the environment they're in. And again, the pressures on them are health, or the place they've chosen to try and go to is a limited time window. And finding them a solution where it may not be exactly what you need, but this is what we think we can get. Now, we've spoken to the, say, for the sake of it, retirement village, and we've managed to work out it may not be exactly what you set out for, but we think it's a better alternative. And you actually open up a solution for them. That's amazing. And at the end of that,
choices.
And at the end of that, when you're sitting there, 3 months later, having a glass of wine in the retirement village and a plate of fish and chips, and they're a new person, because this deep stress, which has probably been on them for 2 years, as they've had to consider the fact they might have to sell and then go through that process, has just been lifted, and they're saying, "I don't know why I didn't do it 5 years ago," and that's a real win.
With that, how do you think? What advice would you give to a vendor, and also, Rebecca, to a landlord, on how to make the relationship work between a property manager and between a salesperson easier for them? For example, sometimes if we knew what was their driver up front, then we could assist them a lot more. Any ideas or any advice that you would give to a vendor and a landlord on how to work, how to make the most of your relationship with your property manager and with your salesperson?
Certainly something which I'll do a lot of the time is try and include other members of the family who are trusted by the vendor to help them make the right decisions, because they may be wary, they may be naive, they may have been through a bad experience. So I try and find out who the people who genuinely care for them are, and who they might listen to, and try and bring them into the whole process as fast as possible. That is absolute key in making sure people don't realise that. So you're building a circle of trust with the people who are important to them as well.
I couldn't agree more.
Great.
I also, just to add to that, I feel for owners and property managers, I mean, again, you don't know what experience they've had with a property manager previously, but the most important thing for me is understanding what is important to them. So is it the money? So what the weekly rent is? Is it the tenant? Like, what are they wanting long term? So, because to me it's really important to speak to the owner about the importance of finding a fabulous tenant, because once you've got a fabulous tenant, you're on your way, right? But we do have a lot of issues around price, especially at the moment in a slow market with, how winter's been and how many properties have been coming onto the market that haven't sold. Obviously, it's been a really big deal. So that relationship, again, is really key, and understanding from the owners at the outset. Again, they're the things that I like to talk to when I'm doing an appraisal or meeting someone for the first time, is really honing down on what is the most important thing. And if we try a price here, are you okay if we can bring that down and be flexible? I don't know if that answered the question, but so probably a little bit different in some of your situations, but
No, it's great.
price point is key.
Yeah.
That's absolutely key at
Well,
the
it's,
moment.
that they do want a great tenant to actually look after, again, a really big investment. I mean, it may be their first rental investment or maybe their second one, but most of our landlords are mum and dad investors.
Yeah, they are.
So they're working hard and trying to actually prepare for their retirement as such. So they want someone to look after their retirement nest egg and to actually care for their property, really.
And they have an expectation, quite a high expectation. So it's understanding that. I think, it's all about that. It's like you said, the circle of trust. It's the communication at the beginning, and then,
I think also it's about not hoodwinking people at the beginning. This is part of that whole, when you're choosing an agent, and the agent who's so often will say, look, this is genuinely where we see the market as at this price point, and then when you don't maybe get the listing, you drill down and find out why. Often it's because somebody else had told them it was worth more. It's the oldest cookie in the jar, isn't it? To win a listing is to over appraise it and to effectively buy that listing. And I'll tell you what though, and that drives me mad. So we're very straight up at the beginning. Now that's really important, because already you're all on the same page. Because there's no point if we're trying to generate interest in a property here, and this has happened, where the whole way through the whole campaign, from before we even sign the agency, we're saying this is where we feel the property's worth, and it's been yep. Come the auction, we've got bids and offers at that point, and then they're saying, no, it's not enough. And that's when you're going, so what is enough? And then it's just a number comes out which is just pie in the sky, and you're sitting there thinking, why did we ever bother doing this? Because I know why we did, because we were trying to sell your house, but from the very beginning we've been upfront with you. So I think there's another part of this, and that is that you've got to hope that your clients can be as open to you as you are with them in order to make that work. And that comes around to that circle of communication.
And then there's the other side to that same story, where they've been given a really high price by someone, and they've chosen to go with that person because they believe in the property more than what another agent does. And the property's still on the market 4 to 6 weeks later because it's actually been targeted to the wrong demographic. It's been targeted to the wrong market. Suria, the marketing is so important. And as I said, in a situation like that, they've actually, potentially the vendors wasted a lot of marketing money because it was never to the right price point. Just wrapping up our session, Suria, if I was a new real estate person wanting to get into the market, how would you suggest I marketed myself to actually get to be seen and to get to be known? What would you do?
I think first you need to ask yourself what type of brand, what type of character, or what type of theme you want to set up for yourself. Would you like to be a fun, humor type of agent, friendly, fun, creative, or you like to be elegant, luxury, professional, or you just like to be fit for all? Yeah. I think that's that's the first thing you need to actually decide. And then in terms of marketing, what you need to do, I've been here 3.5 years. I've done quite a bit of work with Carolyn, you together. We can see that the marketing strategy has evolved significantly from 3 years ago to now. We used to focus a lot on the brand presence and promoting our brand, our service, our results, telling people who we are, what service we provide, and how we can help. But I don't think these days those are the things that are the main focus. Audience want to be more engaging, and they want to have interactive experience with us, which is also why today we are doing this podcast. We're trying to give more information to people to actually know us, and also more creative content. So I think for new agent, first of all, you need to know what type of brand you are creating. And then in terms of marketing tools, there's just a lot of out there. And there are different strategy create very different impact to people. Personally, I think digital marketing is definitely a must because it's cost effective and you can do it anywhere. And then, but it is also very important to actually combine with physical presence. I think you can't just expect your brand to run online or dropping flyers, but not actually showing yourself as a real person or being present. So being around community area, sponsorship, events, and participate in events, talking to people, actually, and then create that personal connection with people is a must.
Yeah.
Combined with your digital marketing brand. Yeah.
And you've really recently completed an A to Z booklet for people who are starting in real estate, but also for the experienced people on how to actually extend their brand out,
Yes, I
which
did.
is a great tool.
Yeah. So it's more sort of because I've been supporting agent in different needs. So I thought, why not I just create a guide, everything that I've done, everything that I've been asked to provide, everything that I've been asked to design or to create for agent. Why not I just combine them into one? And then I design a marketing calendar, kind of give new agent a quick overview guide of what they can do at the start of their career. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's a great guide. Great guide, really simple to use. Rawdon, what advice would you give to someone who said, look, I'm thinking of getting into real estate? What do you reckon, Rawdon?
Well, they've got to know that it's an interesting one because there's a very low barrier to entry. Most people, if you want to get into real estate, you can get in. You have to do a bit of reading, a bit of study. You're going to pass a few exams, and then you've got a ticket to go and sell houses. However, the reality is, and it would help if you've actually got somebody who would let you sell houses under their banner, an agency. But the reality is that it's not. That's the easy bit. It's not. There's so much to learn once you get into the job. It's something where you will get out what you put in, but you've got to put a lot in to get anything out. It's highly competitive because of that low barrier to entry. So it's hard work. The first thing I'd say is it's hard work. You're going to get out what you put in. And then you've got to make I was asked this the other day by somebody said, oh, I'm thinking about going into, not sure, which agency or whatever. And I said, whatever you choose, find out who's going to give you the best support. Because it's a lonely old place when you're starting out. And I was lucky that I started in a company where where you had invested in a sales manager who was invested in me to train me up and help me all the way, that you were going to help me, that you had an admin team who we were just talking about helping agents with their marketing, where there's a system set up where actually everything I needed as a new agent was catered by one of the sort of four corners of that admin structure in our office. That was absolute key. And I can't understand when I meet people who are new agents who've just left one branch to go to another that they didn't do their homework beforehand. I don't know why they chose that. Maybe they had a friend who was working there. Maybe it was the closest geographically to them. But if you're not in a structure which is going to help you, and even more than that, and an agency, Barfoot and Thompson has an incredible training program, which many people take advantage of, and then they might move somewhere else. I don't know, but if they don't want to give it a full, give it their full energy. But I don't understand why people focus on, maybe there's one person in there who's told them, you're going to make this much money if you come here, and well, already you've got the wrong focus. You can't make money your goal when you enter real estate. That's the other thing to warn people of. I'm lucky that I've always managed to make a living out of it, but goodness me, there's an awful lot in the last 18 months who've really struggled.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily going to get easier, but it's you've got to have a good support network around you.
I agree. Rebecca, we've recently had a cadet in our office. So what advice would you say to, his name was Josh, before Josh started as a cadet, what would you say to him?
I think work ethic is one of the most important things in this business. And and I look at it as an apprenticeship, and I love what this company offers in that cadetship. So much opportunity to learn the basics and then have that opportunity to come and be in a branch and actually, have that experience. So for me, I think align yourself with an amazing company, and Barfoot certainly is that. There's just so much on offer, and everything is what you put into it. So if you're a go get it sort of a person and you've got that work ethic, the world's your oyster in this company. And property management is a great stepping stone to other things. Yeah. And it's also, there's a lot of training, so there's so many areas that you can improve on that you might not have the skill set. You're supported the whole way through, and I think it's a great opportunity. So I'm not too good at accounts, and we've got a huge amount of support. Yeah. So I sort of feel like in property management, sometimes you don't have the whole package, but you play to your strengths, and then the areas where you may fall down a little bit, there's a team to help lift you up. And that is what we have at Remuera, and I'm so proud of that. And and that's why I love coming to work, because I know that whatever challenge I have in a day, there's someone there to help me. And so, I highly would recommend it. And it's been a joy to watch Josh progress and step into his own, it's very rewarding. So
when I was mentioning those agents who then come in and then they disappear to another agency, amazingly the people I met and I trained with on that front runners course that it was called at Barfoot, and then I'll meet them 3 months later and they've gone over to another agency, and I'm going, how's it going? Oh, it's okay. Guys, that isn't the solution.
No, it's not the solution.
How often do people make that mistake? It's not working quite well here, so I'm going to go to a different agency, and it's...
You take yourself wherever you go.
Okay, there we go. That's exactly the reality.
That's it. At the end of the day.
You can't make it work here. How are you going to make it work there?
Totally. It's maddening.
Yeah. Amazes me.
They get promised something for a little short time frame, and that's what actually tempts them. But you've got to look at the support that you're getting full time. So, hey, that brings us to the end of this episode. I'd like to thank you three for your time, your insights. They're really, really invaluable, and hopefully the audience also found them invaluable about what happens behind the scenes. I know there's a lot more that we could tease out. There's a lot more stories to be told, but I really appreciate your openness with this and sharing. So thank you.
No worries.
Thanks. Pleasure.
And that's a wrap for our very first episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you got to enjoy meeting the team, learning about how they got into real estate, and actually what drives them and their passion for this business. Wishing you all the best. Hope you have a great day.